Hi, friends, and welcome to the channel. This is a podcast where I share my insights. And I want to talk about awakening to the overly dramatic. And this is the part of us that sort of overlays a thick, heavy drama to everything. And whilst I don't think we can totally remove that, we can step out of it enough to recognize the play, or in Sanskrit, lila. So, stick around and I'm going to help point you to a possibly new worldview. A drama queen is someone who has been taken in so strongly by their dramatic performance that it feels so convincing. They have managed to believe themselves to be the roles they play. This is the mark of a good actor, and the universe is a great actor. I mean, it's convincing because we, as a society, particularly in the West, we define ourselves by the roles we play. Tell me about yourself. Well, that's going to open up all kind of interesting revelations. I have a hard time telling people about myself because I do not identify with the roles I play. I'm not even sure if I'm sharing my insights, or I am a spiritual teacher, or a goofy, bald-headed guy on the internet. It's very unclear to me what I'm doing by way of an outwardness. But it is clear to me that what I'm doing by way of an inwardness is simply just a love for what I've learned about my true self. But in order to recognize the overly dramatic, one must have been caught up in the overly dramatic. And that's me. In other words, it takes one to know one. And you have to be swept away in your own dramatic roles before you realize how good you have become at losing yourself in a dream. And that's what life is. It's a dream, or a drama, or in Sanskrit, lila, or play. And so we have to, if we look at it through the lens of drama, we might align more closely with Hinduism, which there is one actor, one expression, which has seemingly turned itself into an amazing amalgamation of multiplicity, where its consciousness has been fragmented into all sorts of individuality, and it has lost itself in its own play. And in Hinduism, there is a basic realization that everyone is Brahman. That's what they call the Godhead, or the one substance to the universe. And when you realize this, congratulations, you've been sort of set free from thinking that your outwardness is who you are. Now, in the West, I don't think that we would piece it together like that, because many of us grew up in a Judeo-Christian worldview, which states that the only person to have ever realized the true nature of his being was a man called Jesus. And nobody else can do that. That was delegated to one individual, and the rest of us are just behind. We're number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So this Christ principle is not repeatable. And that's what makes Christianity, in its misunderstood form, what makes it an unworkable religion. However, if the Christ principle, or the the awakening or realization of self, or the Brahman, is possible, then a Christian and a Hindu are talking about the same thing. In the same way as a Buddhist could say, I can be a Buddha. I can awaken to my Buddha nature. I can awaken to my Christ nature. I can awaken to my self. Then these worldviews suddenly make sense together, even in an Eastern view where nature is a product of itself. It's a spontaneous happening of itself. Then all of these things come under one roof. Then what we're doing is pretending to be these fragments that seem to have their own will, consciousness, free will, desire, etc. And that's the convincing part. It feels like you're moving the body, driving the vehicle through an unconscious environment. But science is beginning to catch up to this, that the environment is not unconscious. There's a new field of study called panpsychism, which would say that it could perhaps be that the mind or the consciousness is everywhere. That even the sun is conscious. Even a rock is conscious. So these things are kind of coming together. But for the overly dramatic, there's a lot of, wait a minute. How could this be that I'm just this invisibility, this awareness that has caught himself in a drama and just didn't know it? So there'll be a tinge of doubt. This will be bullshit to the person who's very, very real in their lives and in what they do. This is the overprotective mother, the passionate business owner, the really convincing victimized person, somebody who's really suffered, These features, these distinguishing features which ostracize, separate, make us special. Then you wise up to it. You wise up to, okay, these Leela, this play, is good drama has some ingredients. You begin to realize what the universe is very good at, and that is creating drama itself. The universe as a whole is a good storyteller. So what does it look like? Well, it looks like the movie Rocky or Superman or Indiana Jones or E.T., any number of things where something goes wrong. Every single movie has this, our story has this sense that, holy shit, something has totally gone haywire. Holy Batman, what do we do now? Right? And we love that. We love a good story like that. But when it happens to us, we don't realize, okay, wait a minute. This is the ingredients of good drama. Play along as if you are in the movie house and you're biting your nails wondering, is Indiana Jones going to make it through this tight space? If Indiana Jones were to get sealed in the tomb, trying to get to the next level, and the door is closing and he reaches to get his hat, and the door closes on his arm and he rots to death. You gotta sit there and watch his body decay as he writhes in pain, wishing he hadn't reached for his hat. He just missed it. So the rest of the movie is 40 years of watching him die and decay. That would be the worst movie ever. You'd go to the manager and say, I want my money back. See, the adventure we want in the dramatic elements, but when it comes to our lives, We think that the sealed tomb is going to keep us locked. But this is, friends, this is a world without end, pretending to be a world with an end. And ends and beginnings go together. So it's not like there is this irreconcilable battle between good and evil. Good and evil know each other. They know each other behind the scenes. In the same way that the villain and the hero in The Wiz, they're great friends. Behind the doors, behind closed doors, in the green room, they're congratulating each other. Even at the end of a play, the devil, the villain, bravo. What a wonderful thing. Like Anthony Hopkins and some of these people are really good at playing villains. That's really good. You had me going. But remember, this is about good drama, good storytelling. If evil, as what we see as evil or bad or nail-biting moments, if that has an equal authority over what we see as good, then you have this ongoing force that meets an immovable object. That's what you call a stalemate. Well, that's a boring life. Superman has met his match and they just stop right there. There's another. So you got the Indiana Jones movie. He's stuck with his arm in the tomb. And then you got the Superman movie where he met his match and they just stop. So anything that resembles stoppage or stagnation would be boring. So this idea of equality, God and the devil duking it out, in reality is bullshit. Really where it gets exciting is when it looks like the villain's going to win. All hope is lost. The tomb is sealing. The Russian is, in the movie Rocky, the Russian guy is going to pulverize him. He's dying. Maybe Rocky won't win. Maybe the Karate Kid won't learn anything. Maybe the Karate Kid's going to be beat up for the rest of his life. If you went to see the Karate Kid and all it was the Karate Kid getting pulverized until he was an adult, you'd want your money back. The beauty about any movie is that the person you're rooting for gets what they want. Sometimes the person that you're rooting for gets what they want in terms of death. Maybe that's what they want. Or to return home. In E.T., I loved Elliot. I thought Elliot should... I was a kid and I thought Elliot should have kept him. I think I cried at E.T. It was so funny. Because I was like 7 or 8 and I cried at E.T. because probably... I believed in my heart of hearts that Elliot should have kept the alien. But the true beauty of that story is that Elliot let him go. He demonstrated love. And sometimes love is something that you release. Sometimes the hero has to pass on the torch or let something go. That's the real hero. But in the end, there's always a way out. And it just appears that there's some kind of obstacle. And letting go is sort of one of those beautiful ways of escaping entrapment that we never think of. Mark Twain was said to have said, everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. Of course we do something about it. We put on coats. We adjust. Climate change is being painted as this doomsday eclipsing moment. But that's when people come together and say no. And save the world. But sometimes it has to get really, really dark before you see the silver lining. That's the ingredients of good drama. But friends, a Hindu would tell you that's just drama. It looks precarious. It looks doomsday-y. It looks like Superman has met his match. But when the play is over, everybody gets a bow. And they all go into the green room and congratulate themselves for playing such convincing roles. And the audience has wept, and the audience has laughed, and the audience has bitten their nails. But they know. Same is true of a horror movie. A child doesn't really know that a horror movie is not real. When children see movies like that, they don't know. They can get really screwed up. But a mature person understands, okay, those are cameras and makeup and effects. A lot of this that we see as the unfolding drama has a lot of effect. I'm talking about behind the scenes. Wising up to it. Lessening the severity of the role you play. And realizing who is playing the part. Essentially the whole. But the whole and the part are necessary. They work together. And when two and two are placed together, you'll see the villain had a small part, but was the same actor. And the overly dramatic are caught in this illusion and have not understood that they are more of a passerby or a witness or an audience to it. When you awaken to it, yes, you are still a character. But one that understands there's a home, a behind the scenes. And that's what reality is. The indwelling of safety. That this is not your end. There is no end. And this life that you're living is a little comma in eternity. And you get to do it over and over and over again. Sometimes you get to do it so many times within one lifetime. You get to play all these roles. You just cannot be convinced and overly dramatic. That is not to say you don't get surprised, you don't laugh, you don't cry, you don't react. You just know. The director says, cut. Attaboy. Good job. You didn't lose yourself. You were convincing. You had me going. But you realized reality. That's what realization is. That you're more of the actor, not the role that the actor plays. The role that the actor plays doesn't have its own power. In the same way that evil doesn't have its own power. It's all love. In the green room, it's all love and games. Good job, villain. You had me going. Good job, hero. I thought I could beat you. The darkness can't win because the darkness ultimately hasn't its own power. So, let's step away from the overly dramatic. You may be in the drama because that's what you are, but think of it as play. Play with it. Enjoy those so-called tight moments. I'll leave you with this story. There was a guy, I don't know, I think it's a Zen story. He was being chased by 2 tigers, and he climbed a rock formation and was climbing up a vine to get away from the tigers. And at the bottom of the cavern where the tigers were waiting for him to fall, and he looked up, and he saw 2 mice gnawing at the top of the vine. So he was fucked, from above and from below. And just at his eyes level, there was a sweet patch of strawberries. And what he did was he started eating strawberries. That's what you call making the most out of a dramatic precipice that you seem to be hanging over. And you're not. You just think you are. My name is Ryan Hebert. I hope you enjoyed these insights. I enjoyed sharing them. Please check out my blog. It's called mymorningmotivator.com.